When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was a cobweb. A dusty, drooping cobweb hanging from a cracked ceiling, swaying like it was waving at me. That was my welcome-back gift from fate. A cobweb. Truly, I was living the princess dream. I sucked in a breath, air, actual air, and pushed myself up from the stiff mattress. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the cold realization settling in my gut. I was alive. Again. Memories of my previous life rushed in like a flood. The betrayal, the loneliness, the execution whispered behind velvet curtains, the blade glinting just before everything went black. Then, a strange, warm tug in my chest. A voice I didn't recognize. A second chance. My second life. I lifted my hands and stared at them. They were smaller, smoother, untouched by fear or desperation. Mary Bennet, I whispered, testing the name on my tongue. Forgotten Princess, round 2. I remembered what this body's future held, death at 20, abandoned by everyone. A scapegoat sacrificed to shield the noble's schemes. A tragedy wrapped in silence. Not anymore. Not if I had anything to say about it. I swung my legs over the bed and winced at the chill in the air. The tiny chamber assigned to me was nothing like a princess's room. In my previous life, I hadn't understood why. Now I did. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased. No attendants, no tutors, no maids. Just me and the cobweb. I stood and steadied myself. My body was frail in this early stage of life, but the mind inside it was not. I was no longer the quiet shadow wandering palace corridors. Someone knocked lightly on my door, more like tapped, barely. A maid peeked in, her eyes widening like she'd seen a ghost. Princess Mary, you're awake. That's unexpected. Unexpected. I fought the urge to laugh, actually laugh. I'm awake, I said softly, and I won't be going anywhere. Little did she know, I meant not to my death, thank you very much. The maid blinked rapidly, then bowed. His Majesty announced he will be conducting a palace-wide evaluation of all royal members today, even the minor ones. Minor ones, translation, me. My heart skidded, hard. Lucien Valehart. The cold emperor. The man whose gaze was rumored to stop hearts. The ruler whose blood ran ice and whose smile, if anyone had ever witnessed one, was probably a national event. In my previous life, I never met him. He never even knew I existed. But in this life, this evaluation, this meeting, this was my opening, my first chance to change everything. The maid wrung her hands. They say His Majesty dislikes incompetence. Please try not to anger him. Don't worry, I murmured as I brushed my tangled hair back. Angering him is the last thing I intend to do. Because to escape death, I had to do the unthinkable. I must win the heart of Emperor Lucien Valehart, the coldest man in the empire. And today would be the day he looked at me for the first time. Palace evaluations sound elegant and refined in theory. In reality, it's a bunch of terrified royals dressed in their nicest silks, pretending they aren't 2 seconds from fainting. I was no exception, though in my case, the silk was questionable. My dress looked like it was sewn by a tailor who had beef with me in a previous life. I smoothed the skirt anyway, squared my shoulders, and stepped into the marble hallway. All around me, nobles whispered. Who is she? Is she a servant? No, some sort of distant princess, I think. Then, why is she dressed like a broom wandered into a sewing room? I smiled politely. They were rude, yes, but at least they were acknowledging my existence, progress. The doors to the grand audience chamber creaked open like the gates to my impending doom. Rows of officials lined the sides, stiff as statues. At the very end, upon a throne carved from obsidian and arrogance, sat Emperor Lucien Valehart. Oh, stars. No portrait had ever done this man justice. His presence hit like cold wind, sharp, commanding, and impossible to ignore. Silver hair fell neatly against a regal black coat, his posture straight enough to make steel jealous. His eyes were the worst part, icy, assessing, and capable of freezing a phoenix mid-flight. The entire room bowed. I did too, and prayed to every deity listening that I wouldn't humiliate myself. Names were called one by one, princes, princesses, cousins twice removed, all stepping forward, offering their best smiles or their most polished achievements. Lucien barely blinked. Then, Princess Mary Bennet. My turn. My throat went dry. I walked forward, steady but painfully aware of every step. The moment I lifted my gaze, our eyes met. It felt like someone dropped a bucket of snow over my soul. For a second, just a second, he hesitated. Lucien Valehart, Emperor of Frost, paused. His gaze sharpened, assessing me with unnerving intensity. Mary Bennet, he said slowly, like tasting the name. You were ill. Not a question, a statement. Yes, Your Majesty, I murmured, but I am better now. Silence. Pin drop, breath-stopping silence. Lucien's fingers tapped the armrest. Your existence in the palace has been minimal. Translation. Why do you look like a forgotten furniture piece? Yes, Your Majesty, I admitted. I was overlooked. His eyes narrowed the tiniest bit. Overlooked. Oh, I accidentally insulted his empire's management. Before I could backpedal or blame the cobweb, he shifted forward, attention fixed entirely on me. Step closer. My heart executed an Olympic-level jump. I obeyed, stopping just a few feet from him. He studied me, my posture, my clothes, my entire being, like he was solving a puzzle no one told him existed. How old are you now? 16, Your Majesty. Another pause. An unreadable expression flickered across his face, gone too fast to interpret. Then, without warning, he rose from his throne. The court gasped. Somewhere behind me, a noble dropped a fan dramatically. Lucien walked toward me, each step echoing like a countdown. My instincts screamed to bow, curtsy, faint something, but my feet stayed rooted. He stopped inches from me. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. Mary Bennet, he said, from today onward, you will no longer be invisible. Being personally observed by Emperor Lucien Valehart sounded, at first, like a golden ticket to survival. In practice, it felt like I'd been adopted by a very elegant glacier. Word spread across the palace, faster than a scandal with good lighting. The forgotten princess caught His Majesty's eye. Did she cast a spell? No, look at her. She definitely tripped and fell in his line of sight. I would love to argue with that last one, but it felt possible. I was halfway through convincing myself this was all a hallucination when a palace servant burst into my tiny room. Princess Mary, His Majesty requests your presence immediately. Oh no. Oh yes. Oh no again. He requests, I squeaked. The servant nodded so fast I feared his head might detach. Actually, more like commands. Please don't make me repeat the message. I value my job. Great. So now my survival depended not only on impressing the Emperor, but also on not making the staff cry. The Walk of Doom. The palace seemed intentionally designed to intimidate the weak. Massive arches, columns large enough to hide an entire battalion, tapestries that stared at you like judging ancestors. Every time I turned a corner, it felt like the walls whispered, "Good luck, sweetheart." When we reached the imperial study, my escort stopped dead. This is as far as I go. Good luck, princess. That's never a good sign. If the palace staff treats a room like a dragon's cave, the dragon is definitely inside. I took a slow, steadying breath and pushed open the heavy doors. The Emperor's study. Lucien Valehart stood by the tall windows, bathed in cold morning light like the universe hired a personal spotlight for him. His coat was dark, embroidered with silver threads that shimmered dangerously. He didn't turn immediately, but I felt the full weight of his presence settle on the room. Princess Mary, he said, voice like carved ice. You're late. I froze. I came as fast as I could, Your Majesty. He finally turned, eyes sweeping over me with unnerving precision. Eat more, you walk too slowly. Wait. Was that concern? Cold, judgy concern, but still. My brain short-circuited. I'll walk faster next time. One eyebrow lifted, unimpressed. Or eat. Okay, so the Emperor just casually insulted my speed, and my body mass within 10 seconds. Excellent start. He walked past me and I caught a faint scent of frost and cedar. It made me want to sneeze, or sigh, hard to tell. Without warning, Lucien handed me a scroll. Read this. The scroll was heavy, fancy, the kind of thing that screamed surprise. Your life is about to get complicated. I unrolled it. My eyes nearly fell out of my skull. Your Majesty, I whispered, this is. A decree, he said simply, effective today. An official appointment, I murmured, rereading it 3 times, nomming me as a second companion. A royal student. A ward under the Emperor's direct tutelage. In simpler words, I was now required to attend the Emperor's private lessons and daily routines. Daily. As in every day. As in me plus Lucien, Valehart equals constant proximity. My heart made a sound I can only describe as a. Lucien watched me, expression unreadable. Is there a problem? Yes, I almost said. No, I actually said. No problem at all, Your Majesty. He stepped closer, eyes cold but intent. Good. I do not tolerate incompetence or slow learners. Gulp. Starting tomorrow, he continued, you will join my morning council, military briefings, and language lessons. You will also report to me directly on your studies. I blinked. All of that. A pause. His gaze dipped to my hands, tightening around the scroll. Something flickered in his eyes, something sharp, calculating, almost curious. I want to see what you are capable of, Mary Bennet. My name and his voice felt too intimate for comfort. Like he was testing how it tasted. And, he added, stepping close enough that my breath tangled, I want to know why you were hidden. Oh. Oh no. He was suspicious. Deeply. Actively. But also interested. Interest from Emperor Lucien was like fire from a frost dragon. Beautiful, rare, and capable of incinerating you. I suggest, he said quietly, that you do not disappoint me. The threat and promise tangled in his tone, sent a shiver racing through me. Yes, Your Majesty, I whispered. He nodded once. Good, dismissed. I turned to leave, heart pounding. Mary. I froze again. His voice lowered, softer. Still cold, but warm enough to melt something small. You will no longer walk with your eyes down. Huh? Whoa, I asked. Lucien's gaze held mine, steady and unyielding. You are a princess of Valehart, he said. Act like one. And just like that, I realized something horrifying. The cold Emperor didn't just notice me. He intended to shape me. By dawn the next morning, I had already accepted 3 things about my new life. Sleep, optional, panic, mandatory. I owned exactly 0 appropriate dresses for being within a 3-mile radius of the Emperor. Lucien Valehart had no business looking that intimidating at sunrise. I was rushing through the corridors, trying to walk faster and eat more, as His Majesty so helpfully suggested, when the doors to the private dining hall slid open. The guards stepped aside. Inside, at the long obsidian table, meant for 50 people, sat exactly 1 man. Lucien. Drinking tea. As if he hadn't upended my entire existence yesterday. His head lifted the moment I entered, his gaze cutting straight through me like a blade, checking the sharpness of another blade. You're early, he said. I thought you preferred punctuality. I do. A pause. But I dislike waiting more. I had no idea if that was a compliment or a threat, so I settled for a neutral nod and sat at the far end of the table. Lucien stared. The butler cleared his throat discreetly. Princess Mary, His Majesty prefers his companions sit within conversational distance. I choked on nothing. Lucien's voice slid across the room like cold silk. Move. Right, conversational distance. Great. I scooted closer, 10 chairs closer, then 5. By the time I sat only 2 seats away, I felt like I was trespassing inside a polar storm. A quiet moment passed. Then, too far, I nearly levitated out of my chair. The butler coughed. A guard turned away to hide a smile. Someone was definitely enjoying my suffering. I dragged my chair until I sat next to him, not touching distance, but dangerously close. I could count the silver threads on his coat. Lucien took a sip of his tea, calm, controlled, absolutely unbothered. I've been informed, he said, that your meals are often insufficient. I blinked. Insufficient. Pathetic was probably the original word, politely translated. Lucien gestured. 2 servants approached with trays. My tray was piled with food. His tray contained a single cup of tea and a slice of bread cut with surgical precision. I stared. Your Majesty, how is this fare? He looked at my plate. You need it. He looked at his plate. I don't. The man ate like a mythical being who lived off ambition and frost. Typical. I picked up a fork and forced myself to eat, trying not to shake under his casual, unwavering scrutiny. Mary, he said at length. I braced myself. Yes, Your Majesty. Your posture, he said, is unacceptable. I sat up straighter so fast my spine almost snapped. Better, he murmured. Silence draped over the table again, until he added. Do you fear me? W.H. What? My fork clattered. I grabbed it again before it slid into my lap. Yes. No. Sometimes. Why were there no correct answers? Lucien watched me with unnerving calm, his expression unreadable. Fear is natural, he said, but incompetence born from fear is not tolerated. So be scared, but perform well. Simple, impossible, perfect. He continued, voice softer than I expected. I asked because you look at me as if I might strike you. Oh. That hurt a little. Not because he was wrong, but because he noticed something that deeply. I won't harm you, he added. My heart flipped upside down, did 3 cartwheels, then fainted. But others will, he finished calmly, so you will stay close to me. There it was. The Emperor's version of comfort. I won't kill you, but everyone else might. Reassuring. I swallowed, understood. He leaned back slightly, studying me with that same cool intensity. After breakfast, he said, you will accompany me to the council. Council, I squeaked. Lucien nodded. If you are to be under my tutelage, you must learn how the Empire functions. You will observe everything. Observe everything. Sit beside the Emperor. In front of every noble and councilman who already hated me on principle. I was doomed. Lucien stood, and the room snapped to attention. He didn't offer me a hand. He didn't slow his stride. But he glanced once, just once, to see if I was following. And the strangest warmth unfurled in my chest. Was this his version of caring? If so, the man had the emotional communication skills of an ice cube, but the impact hit all the same. The council chamber was enormous, circular, and dripping with enough tension to season a feast. Nobles in embroidered robes whispered behind their sleeves, pretending I couldn't hear them as I followed Lucien inside. Why is she here? The forgotten one, impossible. She looks fragile, she'll crumble in minutes. Poor thing, the Emperor will devour her. Devour me. Sir, this is my first time in the room. Can I at least sit before being consumed? Lucien didn't react to any of it. But I did catch the way his shoulders straightened the moment the whispers grew loud, subtle, but icy enough to make the temperature drop. He stepped forward. The council bowed. "Your Majesty," they chorused. Lucien's gaze scanned the room, sharp as a blade. "Begin." I hovered behind him like an anxious baby bird until a guard pointed to my seat, directly beside the Emperor. Fantastic. I was now the main exhibit at a noble zoo. As everyone settled, Lucien began discussing border supplies, military deployment, and tax discrepancies. It was fast-paced, dense, and half the words might as well have been ancient runes. I listened intensely, trying to piece everything together. I was doing pretty well. Until Lord Varric happened. Lord Varric was the type of noble who looked like he sniffed commoners for sport. He adjusted his rings and leaned forward. "Your Majesty," he said, feigning politeness, "forgive my boldness, but why is Princess Mary present? She has never participated in governance." Translation: why bring this useless extra here? Lucien didn't even look up, because I decided so. Varric faltered, then forced a smile. "But surely she is unacquainted with imperial matters. Would her presence not slow the council, or distract you?" My heart dropped. Every eye turned toward me. Lucien finally raised his gaze, cold as a winter storm. "Are you implying I cannot focus?" Varric blanched. "No, Your Majesty, I only meant." "Then you question my decision." Not at all." The Emperor's voice softened dangerously. "Your stammering suggests otherwise." Varric looked ready to melt into a puddle. I wanted to sink under the table and live there forever. Lucien turned to me suddenly. "Mary." I flinched. "Yes, Your Majesty." "What did Lord Varric say regarding border supply?" he asked. "Oh." He was testing me. Lord Varric stared at me, praying I would fumble so he could laugh. I took a breath. "He stated that caravans from the northern provinces are delayed due to the snowstorms," I said carefully, "and proposed increasing the guard escort to ensure safe passage." Lucien's eyes flickered. "And your assessment?" "Oh no." He wanted an opinion. "My opinion." Varric smirked. "Let the princess speak freely." "Freely? Sir, I want to speak not at all." But this was it. My chance to prove I wasn't a useless shadow. "Your Majesty," I said slowly, forcing my voice not to tremble, "it might be better to wait for a weather update before deploying more troops. Sending additional escort in the middle of a blizzard could risk more lives." Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Varric's smirk faded. A few council members exchanged glances. Someone actually dropped a quill. Lucien's gaze locked onto mine, unreadable but focused. Finally, he spoke. "Correct." I nearly passed out. Lucien continued. "Sending reinforcements without assessing the storm would be inefficient. The princess is thinking logically, unlike some." Varric shrank. "Why, yes, Your Majesty." Did the Emperor just praise me? My brain short-circuited. I stared at my hands, trying not to die of shock. The council resumed, though now people kept glancing at me, but not with disdain. With curiosity. Every time I dared peek at Lucien, he was already looking away, as if he hadn't just defended me, validated me, and turned me into the palace's new mystery. As the nobles filed out, Lucien remained seated. I stood awkwardly beside him, unsure if I should breathe or leave. Then he spoke. Quiet, soft, but firm. "You did well." My head snapped up. "I really?" "Yes." He paused, gaze lingering on me for a beat too long. "You surprised them." My cheeks warmed. "Did I surprise you too, Your Majesty?" A long silence. Lucien stood, cloak shifting like smoke, and stepped close enough that his shadow fell over me. "No," he said quietly. "I expected it. The summons came at dawn." No guards. No formal escort. Just a single messenger knocking softly on my chamber door, bowing so low I feared his spine might snap. "His Majesty requests your presence," Immediately. Requests. Right, and dragons request you to jump in their mouths too, I suppose. Still, I dressed quickly, too quickly, judging by the trembling in my hands, then followed the messenger through a maze of silent corridors, the palace still washed in gray morning light. We stopped at a set of double doors etched with silver wolves. Lucien's private study. My heart tried to leap directly out of my ribcage, waving a tiny white flag on the way. The messenger opened the door and vanished, leaving me alone with the Emperor. Lucien Valehart stood by the tall windows, a dark silhouette framed by the rising sun. His presence filled the room like a storm contained only by sheer will. Mary. He spoke my name without title, without the stiffness he usually wrapped around every syllable. It hit harder than any insult. I swallowed. Your Majesty. Come here. Not a command, more like a quiet inevitability. I moved toward him, each step too loud, too revealing of my own nerves. He looked different today. Not cold. Not warm. Just unreadable in a way that felt dangerous. I've been reviewing reports, he said, turning slightly toward me, about the unrest in the south. He paused, and about you. Me. I tried for confidence, but landed somewhere between confused and squeaky. You were seen near the training grounds yesterday. Oh, that. Just walking. I crossed my arms, mostly so he wouldn't notice they were shaking. Didn't know walking was treason. Something flickered in his eyes, annoyance, amusement, both. You misunderstand, I'm not reprimanding you. He stepped closer. I immediately regretted breathing. Up close, Lucien radiated quiet power, the kind that didn't need threats or guards. His gaze traveled over my face, lingering just a second too long. I called you here, he said lowly, because there are matters you must understand before they become dangerous. I tried to step back. He caught my wrist gently, as if he didn't want to startle me. The cold emperor touching me softly should be illegal. I'm writing a letter to the council later. Mary, he murmured, listen. My breath stalled. There is a prophecy in this palace, sealed, forgotten, but not erased. His thumb brushed my wrist once before he released me. It speaks of a princess of no name, no power, who would either save this empire or destroy it. A shiver climbed my spine. He noticed. And you think I'm that princess? I don't think. His gaze locked with mine. I know. The room shrank around us, thick with something unspoken and far too intimate. If that's true, I whispered, am I your enemy or your weapon? His jaw tightened. He stepped close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the restrained emotion beneath all that ice. You are neither, Lucien said quietly, almost fiercely, but you will stay close to me. Why? My voice cracked like thin glass. Because your fate, he said, lowering his head just a fraction, is now tied to mine, whether you wanted it or not. My pulse tripped. My thoughts tangled. My lungs forgot how to function. Lucien straightened, emotion shuddered once more. You may go. But as I reached the door, he added, barely loud enough for me to catch. I summoned you to warn you, Mary, but you unsettle me more than any danger. I nearly walked into the door. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if he meant it as an accusation. Or something far, far more terrifying. If I had known the morning would end with someone trying to stab me, I would have picked a nicer dress, something thicker, preferably armor. But no, I had chosen pale silk. Silk does not stop knives. I checked. It began in the training grounds. Captain Aldrich, tall, annoyingly handsome in that I've survived 15 battles and still have perfect hair was showing me different defensive stances after catching me snooping around yesterday. You have quick reflexes, he said with a smile, for someone who claims she can't fight. I said I can't fight, I corrected. Not that I'm incapable, there's a difference. He laughed, a warm, bright sound that made me smile despite myself. And that's when I felt it. A shift in the atmosphere. A chill that wrapped around my spine. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. Lucien Valehart, Emperor of Frostbite mood swings, was standing behind us. Aldrich straightened instantly. I tried to do the same, but my spine forgot the concept of functioning. Lucien didn't look at the captain. He looked at me. And his eyes, oh stars. Cold. Sharp. Possessive. Aldrich, he said, voice like a blade barely sheathed. You may return to your post. The captain bowed, and left with the speed of a man who valued his life. I opened my mouth. You didn't have to. Why were you alone with him? Oh. So we were doing this today. It was training, not seduction, I said dryly. Lucien stepped closer. He touched your waist. It was a fighting stance. He smiled at you. Lucien, people are allowed to. Before I could finish, a shadow moved. Too fast. Too close. I heard the whisper of steel, the rush of air, the sharp cry of a bird overhead. Then Lucien pushed me back, grabbing me by the arm and pulling me behind him in one impossibly smooth movement. The impact of his body between me and the assassin was so sudden I nearly fell. The blade meant for my throat sliced across his forearm instead. Blood. Red against white. Lucien didn't flinch. He struck the attacker with a burst of icy force that froze the man's arm instantly. The assassin screamed, dropped the knife, and collapsed. Guards rushed in, too late to be useful as usual. Lucien turned to me, and for the first time since I'd known him. He looked terrified. Mary, he breathed, voice rough, are you hurt? And no, I whispered, shaken. Are you? He ignored the wound like it was a mosquito bite. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my jaw as if checking for injuries. My heart promptly forgot the basics of existing. I told you to stay close to me, he said, too soft, too intense. That doesn't mean you get to bleed for me, I snapped, and only realized my hands were gripping his coat when he covered them gently with his. I will bleed for you, he said quietly. I will bleed before I ever let fate take you from me again. Again. The world stilled. Lucien, I whispered, in the original in the last life, you didn't protect me. His jaw clenched, guilt flashing like a crack in his ice. I know. And this time. My throat tightened. You did. His eyes closed for a heartbeat, as if my words were something he'd been waiting centuries to hear. When he opened them, there was no cold left. Only a dangerous, aching tenderness. You will not die, Lucien said, voice low and absolute. Not while I reign, not while I breathe, not while I have any power left in my hands. Heat rose behind my eyes. I hated it. I loved it. Then my fate really is different this time, I whispered. It is, he answered, taking my hand in his uninjured one, because I will not allow history to claim you again. And for the very first time since waking in this life, I believed it. I wasn't going to be killed. I was going to be protected, wanted, and possibly very, very emotionally doomed. By the cold emperor who was no longer cold at all. For the next several days, the palace buzzed like a disturbed hive. Assassin caught. Captain Aldrich interrogated. Nobles whispering like piranhas in silk. And me. I was stuck in the emperor's personal wing. Apparently for security reasons. Translation. Lucien Valehart had gone from cold emperor to overprotective dragon in exactly 6 minutes and 34 seconds after that knife incident. Every time I stepped into the hall, guards materialized like mushrooms after rain. Every time I tried to sneak to the library, Lucien appeared with a look that said, try it. I dare you. And every time our eyes met, I remembered his words. I will bleed before I let fate take you again. Again. That word still sat heavy on my chest. Tonight, the palace was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own fears arguing with your heartbeat. I wandered to the balcony of his private garden, the only place the guards couldn't follow without permission. Moonlight spilled over the marble, silvering everything it touched. "What are you doing out here?" His voice came from behind me. I didn't jump, but only because pride wouldn't let me. "I needed air," I said, "and space. I hesitated, hovering." Lucien stepped beside me, hands clasped behind his back, gaze turned toward the night sky. "I've had difficulty giving you space." That's one way to put it. His lip twitched, the closest thing to a smile he ever showed in public. For a moment, we simply stood there. Two people bound by a prophecy neither of us asked for. "Mary," he said quietly, "the assassin wasn't after me." My breath froze. He was after me. I believe so. The world tilted just a little. Then why keep me here? Why guard me so closely? Shouldn't you distance yourself from a girl with a target on her back? He turned to me fully. "Because I know who you were," Lucien said, "and because I failed you once. I swore," he said, "that if fate ever gave me another chance, I would not let you slip away again." My chest ached. Not with fear this time, but with something warm, terrifying, and real. "Lucien," my voice trembled, "I don't know if I can trust you yet. I don't expect you to. And that is why I will earn it," I swallowed. "Then what happens next?" Lucien's eyes darkened with meaning. "Part 2.